What's up, ATL? It's time for another edition of A to Z with Mark Zinno. It's your boy John Michaels in for Mark. Once again, he's off enjoying a little bit of family time with the vacationing family, the Zinno family. I don't know where they were at. They were on a beach, and they looked like they were having a good time. We got a lot we'll get into on the Locked On ATL podcast today. Talk some Braves. Obviously, what they're doing continues to be fantastic as the New York Mets are now getting closer and closer as the Braves are trying to make the move. We'll dive into the Falcons for a second because we've been doing some stuff on 680 The Fan. We're kind of going over, is this team better or worse at different position groups? And it's almost shocking a number that we'll give you defensively that we have to get into. We'll get into the college football of it all, as well as it looks like super conferences are here to stay, and they're not going to be much longer before potentially the ACC, the Pac-12, and some others could be really looking for some dance partners. This segment of the program brought to you by our good buddies at Rock Auto and rockauto.com. But let's start first and foremost with what's going on in college football. My favorite, if you follow me on social media at John Michaels U, you understand there's nothing I like better than a little bit of college football. Yeah, I'm a fan of the U. Don't hold that against me. We haven't been good in a long time. But there's a lot going on college football-wise, and we talked about this some on Friday. And more came out during the week. USC, UCLA apparently had been in negotiations with the Big Ten going back for a while, and it's kind of understood right now that Lincoln Riley may have known that they were leaving from the Pac-12 going to the Big Ten, but we'll see how that all plays out. The bigger thing with this now becomes a rumor that came out today. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, talked about the SEC potentially going out and finding some hired guns. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, all teams that were mentioned in the SEC. Now, the arms race is obviously tremendous right now in college football. It's kind of the haves and the have-nots. And I think what you're ultimately going to see before everything goes too far is at minimum 3 conferences, maybe of 20 teams each, split geographically east, west, north, south, however you really want to have that. And everybody else is going to be scrambling for a home. But let's start with the idea of potentially Clemson, Florida State, or Miami going to the SEC. 2 of those schools fit really well geographically, history, amenities, size of the stadium, people showing up to games. That's Clemson, national power, obviously, with what they've been doing in college football over the last few years. And it's Florida State, which is kind of funny to hear me say Florida State, but it's because Doak Campbell Stadium will get rocking to the tune of 80 to 85,000 people. And when that Seminole chant hits, it's absolutely amazing. Much as I can't stand the Seminoles themselves, it is a place that really has a rich tradition of college football, and they kind of fit in to the SEC footprint. You think about it. Clemson's already got a rival right now with South Carolina in conference. Florida State already has a rivalry right now with Florida in conference. None of that would have to go away at all if these teams were to come around and take shape. And again, it comes down to money. And we talked about this some on Friday. You're talking about the SEC potentially paying $20 million more per year to each institution than what's being paid currently with the ACC. Now, the ACC has some out clauses that really could prohibit teams from leaving until you really start to look financially and figure out what's going on with these teams. $20 million a year, was that $60 million over a 3-year period as currently constructed. There's about a $50 million out clause for anybody that's trying to get out of their contract before the TV deal is up in the ACC. With that, teams could look and go, look, for 2 or 3 years, and we could stretch this out. It's not like you got to have to pay $50 million right off the get-go. You have that happen, you go ahead and you pay what you need to pay, and you recoup it in the SEC. I think it's a no-brainer for the SEC as currently constructed. Think about Texas and Oklahoma are coming in, and that's going to make it, I believe, a 16-team conference up from the 14 that it is now. You had a Clemson and Florida State. All of a sudden, that makes it 18. If you really believe it's going to be a 20-team conference, which is what a lot of people have talked about, then you find 2 additional teams. Now, Miami's interesting. They have the tradition football-wise. They're really good baseball-wise. Basketball, I know this year was an Elite 8 team, but not typically a team that you'd want running into the basketball conference because they're not normally great. But a program that's decided to invest $100 million in the football program. They have a world-class stadium, which is what they have right about now at Hard Rock Stadium. And the problem is they just don't get people to show up to any of the games. We'll continue this conversation here in just a second, but a word real quickly from our sponsors at Rock Auto, with the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible now for your local chain auto parts store to keep up. You know how this goes. You go in there and you're looking for, let's just say, floor mats. I've got a Kia. I'm driving my Kia. I want Kia floor mats. Guess what? My local auto parts store does not have this. They have aftermarket floor mats that don't necessarily fit the contour of your car. But if you go right now to Rock Auto, you can get exactly what you want. Just think, if you need floor mats again for your Kia K5 like I do, you can order mats for your Kia K5. They've been in business over 20 years, reliably low. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us so they know that we sent you. It's an amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Again, I've ordered floor mats. Like legitimately, I had a Camaro. You go into whatever your chain store is and you go in, you look for Camaro mats, and they have the aftermarket match, and you've got a pair of scissors trying to cut them out. Don't have those problems at rockauto.com. What does the SEC ultimately do? They are going to expand. My estimation, by the end of the year, you're going to have an idea where a bunch of these people are going to. Now, how does that affect Georgia? Right now, it doesn't. Clemson, yeah, would be on Georgia's level. Florida State and Miami, even if they get back to their best, awesome. You've got an unbelievable conference. But for right now, it's not really going to bother them. Georgia's still going to pull in top 5 recruiting classes as long as Kirby Smart and company's there. As long as Nick Saban's on the other time, those are the 2 favorites. Then you probably slot Clemson right underneath them. Then it's Oklahoma, maybe a little bit under there. And then the rest, again, the LSUs and the Floridas and everybody else of the world, no disrespect to them, they're not on that level. You look at what Georgia's doing recruiting-wise. I know people got all up in arms. Oh, they lost a 4-star recruit over the weekend. He's class of 2024. And let me tell you what I don't worry about with Kirby Smart and company. Whatever the hell's happening with class of 2024. That is a long time from now, and it's a long time for a 16-year-old or 17-year-old potentially to go out, change his mind, take recruiting visits, fall in love with another school, and potentially circle right back to Georgia, realizing the Dogs are going to be right there at the top. I saw an article this weekend that also said Georgia's one of the most likely teams to go undefeated in the regular season, and I think that's a no-brainer. You open against Oregon, you're probably going to beat Oregon by about 3 touchdowns. And the rest of the schedule, currently, Georgia is favored by more than 14 points over everybody. Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, Georgia Tech. They don't see Alabama. They don't see LSU. Who the heck's going to beat Georgia right now in the SEC? It's nobody. Let's go ahead and circle and pen it in. Georgia, Alabama in the SEC championship coming up in December. When we get back, are the Falcons going to be historically bad again? Or could they just be a little bit less than historically bad? Talk about that next here on the Locked On ATL podcast. John Michaels in for Zinn here on the Locked On ATL Network.